The air in the dungeon was heavy, thick with the scent of iron, damp stone, and the unmistakable, spicy musk of a distressed alpha. I stood there, arms crossed, looking down at the magnificent specimen chained to the wall. He was wounded, exhausted, yet his eyes burned with a ferocity that made my omega instincts tremble, even if my brain was too arrogant to listen. "You really are a piece of work," I said, leaning against the cold bars, twirling a key around my finger. 7 days, and you still have that look in your eyes. Most men would be begging for mercy by now. The man, Aaron, lifted his head. His dark hair was matted with sweat and dried blood, but his jawline was sharp enough to cut glass. He rattled the chains, his voice a low, dangerous growl that vibrated in my chest. "You little deviant," he rasped, his breath coming in shallow gasps. "Let me go? Now." I laughed, a bright, carefree sound that echoed in the dark chamber. "Or what? You're my prize. I saved your life, didn't I? I think I'm entitled to a little compensation." "Do you have any idea who I am?" he snarled, his eyes flashing a deep, crimson red, the sign of a prime alpha on the verge of a feral break. "I am Aaron, the Emperor of the Western Territories. I am the ruler of West Lyon." I rolled my eyes, stepping closer to wipe a smudge of dirt from his cheek. "Sure, sweetheart. And I'm the king of the South. Oh wait, I actually am a prince. Prince Raymond of South Chew. But you? You're just a very handsome, very delusional drifter I picked up off the road. You? Fool," he breathed, his head slumping forward again. I didn't believe him. Not for a second. I was Raymond. I was known for 2 things, being the most beautiful Omega in the Southern Kingdom, and being completely useless at anything other than spending money and appreciating handsome men. When I saw him bleeding out in that alley, surrounded by assassins, I didn't see a geopolitical crisis. I saw a jawline carved by the gods and pheromones that smelled like cedar and storm clouds. I had my guards save him because I wanted him. It was pure lust. "Rest up, Your Majesty," I whispered, patting his cheek. "I'll be back later." I didn't know then that he wasn't lying. I didn't know that I had just kidnapped, imprisoned, and bedded the most terrifying warlord on the continent. A man known as a tyrant. A man who supposedly preferred men and had wiped out entire armies before breakfast. 2 days later, reality kicked down my front door. Literally. I was lounging in my solar, sipping tea, when the windows shattered. Black-clad figures poured into the room like liquid shadow. Before I could even reach for the dagger I kept for decoration, a cold blade was pressed against my throat. "Where is he?" a voice barked. I looked up to see a man in black armor, his face masked, holding a sword to my jugular. Behind him, dozens more filled the room. This wasn't a bandit raid. This was a special ops extraction. "Where is who?" I stammered, my heart hammering against my ribs. The leader didn't speak. Instead, he held up a jade pendant. It was carved in the shape of a roaring tiger, the royal crest of West Lyon. My stomach dropped through the floor. I recognized it. It belonged to my prisoner. I had moved him to the panic room in the basement last night because I thought intruders were coming to rob me. I thought I was being clever. "Oh," I squeaked. "That guy." Within minutes, they had dragged me down to the basement. When they brought Aaron out, he looked different. He was still injured, still pale, but the moment his men saw him, they dropped to their knees. They draped a black cloak with silver embroidery over his shoulders. He didn't look like my prisoner anymore. He looked like a god of war. He sat on a makeshift throne his men brought in, staring at me. The silence was deafening. "Well," Aaron said, his voice smooth and terrifyingly calm. "Prince Raymond, the game isn't over yet." He stood up, wincing slightly, and walked over to me. He towered over me, his alpha scent overwhelming, smelling of dominance and retribution. "It's my turn now." The journey back to the Western Territories was hell. Absolute hell. I was no longer a prince. I was a captive. Aaron insisted I ride in his carriage, not out of kindness, but so he could torment me. "Peel this grape," Aaron commanded, leaning back against the plush velvet cushions. I glared at him, holding the grape like I wanted to crush it. I have never peeled a grape in my life. I have people for this. "You are the people for this," he said, his eyes dancing with amusement. "Or would you prefer I hand you over to the soldiers outside? They've been on campaign for 6 months. I'm sure they'd love a pretty little Omega prince to pass around." I paled. He saw my fear, and let out a dark chuckle. Relax. I'm not that cruel. Yet. I peeled the grape, my fingers trembling with rage, and shoved it toward his mouth. He caught my wrist, his grip like iron, and ate the fruit from my fingers, his tongue deliberately grazing my skin. A jolt of electricity shot up my arm. Delicious, he murmured, not breaking eye contact. You know, Raymond, for a useless prince, you have excellent taste in men. You picked me, after all. I picked a dying stray, I snapped, pulling my hand back. If I knew you were the emperor, I would have let you bleed out. Liar, he said softly. You smell like vanilla and honey every time I look at you. Your biology betrays you, Omega. You want me just as much now as you did when I was chained to your wall. He wasn't wrong. That was the worst part. Even terrified, my inner Omega was preening under his attention. It was humiliating. We camped that night near the border. The air was colder here, the wind biting. I excused myself to use the latrine, but really, I just needed to breathe. I wandered near the main command tent, hoping to find a moment of peace. Instead, I heard voices. Your Majesty, please, a rough voice pleaded. You can't even sit properly. That South Chew brat. He hurt you. He humiliated you. I froze. I recognized that voice. It was General David, the man who had held the sword to my throat. David, Aaron's voice cut through the canvas, sharp and warning. Enough. I crept closer, peering through a gap in the tent flap. General David was kneeling before Aaron, his face flushed with emotion. Why him? David asked, his voice cracking. He's a frivolous, spoiled idiot. I have served you for 10 years. I have loved you for 10 years. And yet you bring him back? You should have killed him. David. Aaron sighed, sounding tired. Stand up. I have told you 1,000 times. You are my general. That is all. But the Chancellor, David argued, standing up but looking furious. Chancellor Spring has a wife and children, and you still let him stay close to you. Why is it different for me? I clamped a hand over my mouth. Oh, this was juicy. A love triangle? The Emperor, his general, and his Chancellor? West Leong was more dramatic than a soap opera. Suddenly, I leaned too hard against the tent pole. It creaked loudly. Who's there? Aaron roared. I stumbled into the tent, trying to look casual. Just me. Taking a stroll. Lovely night for a military coup discussion. General David looked like he wanted to gut me right there. Aaron just rubbed his temples. Get out, David. Go to sleep. When we were alone, Aaron looked at me, his expression unreadable. You have a bad habit of being where you shouldn't be. And you have a bad habit of breaking hearts. I retorted, sitting on the edge of his cot. Your general is in love with you. Your chancellor is apparently your ex. Do I need to take a number? Aaron walked over, looming over me. The air grew heavy with his scent. You don't need a number, Raymond. You're the only one who had the audacity to chain me up. That puts you in a category of your own. Is that a compliment? It's a warning, he whispered, leaning down until our lips almost brushed. You played the dominant alpha back in your dungeon. Now we're in my territory, and I intend to show you exactly how a prime alpha claims what's his. We arrived at the capital of West Leong a few days later. It was starkly different from the lush, humid south. Everything here was stone and steel, cold and imposing, just like its emperor. Aaron dumped me in the Phoenix Palace, the residence reserved for the Empress. It was a clear statement to the court, and it put a target on my back the size of a dinner plate. Get settled, he told me, before disappearing to deal with state affairs. I'll visit you tonight. Be ready. Ready for what? I yelled after him. To scrub your back? To scream my name. He called back without turning around. I turned around and screamed into a pillow. To distract myself, I decided to explore my prison. I wandered into the gardens, expecting to be lonely. Instead, I found a party. 4 beautiful men were sitting around a stone table. One was polishing a sword. One was practicing opera scales. 2 were playing cards. They looked up as I approached. Oh, the one with the sword said flatly. The new guy. Hi, I said, waving awkwardly. I'm Raymond. I'm visiting. We know who you are, the opera singer said, snapping his fan shut. You're the one who kidnapped the boss. Legend. I blinked. What? Come sit, one of the card players said, patting the empty stone bench. I'm Chun. This is Lin, Sue, and the grumpy one with the sword is Lou. We're the harem. I sat down, confused. You're his concubines. On paper, Chun laughed, dealing a hand of poker. In reality, we're a tax write-off. Or political hostages. Or charity cases. The boss doesn't actually sleep with us. He doesn't. I asked, feeling a strange flutter of relief in my chest. Nope, Sue chimed in. He's too busy conquering the world. Plus, he's picky. Like, impossibly picky. He hasn't touched anyone in years. Until you showed up. He hasn't touched me. I lied quickly. They all looked at me. Then they looked at the bite mark on my neck that I had failed to cover with my collar. Right, Lou deadpanned. Ante up. 5 silver pieces. By the time evening rolled around, I had lost 50 silver pieces, but I had gained 4 new best friends. It turned out the terrifying harem of the West Liang Emperor was just a club for bored, talented men who had nowhere else to go. That night, Aaron came to my chambers. He dismissed the servants, locked the door, and turned to me with a look that made my knees weak. Did you enjoy your day with the boys? He asked, unbuttoning his tunic. They're nice, I said, backing up until my legs hit the bed. Better company than you. Is that so? He stalked toward me, shedding his clothes with an ease that spoke of supreme confidence. His body was a masterpiece of scars and muscle, golden skin glowing in the candlelight. Let's see if you still think that in an hour. He pushed me onto the bed, his weight settling over me. It wasn't like in the dungeon. There was no desperation here, only power. He kissed me, hard and possessive, his tongue demanding entrance. My body betrayed me instantly, melting into the heat of him. But then, panic set in. I remembered who I was. I was a prince. I wasn't a pet. I wasn't a conquest. No, I gasped, trying to push him off. Yes, he growled, pinning my wrists. You started this, Raymond. You woke the dragon. Now you deal with the fire. He lowered his head to my neck, his teeth grazing my scent gland. The biological imperative to submit washed over me, a tidal wave of hormones. I felt my resolve crumbling. I couldn't let him win. I couldn't be just another body in his bed. I panicked. As his mouth covered mine again, I bit down. Hard. I felt his tongue tear. The metallic taste of blood filled my mouth. Aaron jerked back, roaring in pain. Blood poured from his mouth, dripping onto his chest. He looked at me, eyes wide with shock and fury. You bit me, he shouted, his voice garbled. Are you insane? I am not a pet. I screamed back, wiping blood from my lips. I am a prince. If you want me, you woo me. You don't just take me because you can. He stared at me, his chest heaving. The anger in his eyes slowly shifted into something else. Confusion. Then, grudging respect. He spat blood into a basin and wiped his mouth. Fine, he hissed. You want to be wooed? Fine. He stormed out of the room, slamming the door so hard the frame cracked. He didn't kill me. In fact, he didn't visit for 2 weeks. I spent the time with the harem boys, playing poker and learning the gossip of the court. I learned about Chancellor Spring, Chun Shinjun. He was the brilliant mind behind Aaron's empire. They had been lovers years ago, but Spring had chosen ambition and a traditional family over Aaron. Now, he served as Aaron's right hand, but the romance was dead. One afternoon, I found Aaron in the royal hot springs. I tried to leave, but he called me over. Get in, he said. The water helps the scars. I hesitated, then stripped to my underrobe and slid into the steaming water. We sat in silence for a long time. I'm sending the boys away, he said suddenly. My head snapped up. The harem? Why? Where? To live their lives, Aaron said, looking at the steam rising from the water. Lou wants to open a dojo. Sue wants to travel. I'm giving them money and freedom. I don't need a harem anymore. Why not? I asked softly. He turned to me. The water lapped at his chest. Because I found the one I want to keep. And he's high maintenance, violent, and bites. I blushed. I only bite when provoked. Raymond, he said, his voice dropping to that serious, intense tone that made my heart race. I don't want a pet. I have enough subjects. I need a partner. Someone who isn't afraid of me. Someone who will bite me if I'm being an ass. He moved through the water until he was in front of me. He took my hand, placing it on his chest, right over his beating heart. You have a talent for business, he said. I saw how you negotiated with the merchants in the market yesterday. You turned a profit on a tiger skin rug that was falling apart. I have an eye for value, I muttered. Then see the value in this, he said. I am offering you a partnership. Help me run the economy of the West. Be my equal, not my queen, not my concubine, my wing king, the one who helps the dragon fly. I stared at him. Wing king? That sounds dramatic. It's fitting. He smiled, a genuine, rare smile that transformed his face. So, what do you say, Prince of the South? Will you rule the markets of the West? I looked into his eyes. I saw the fire there, but it wasn't the fire of a tyrant anymore. It was the fire of a man offering me the world. Okay, I whispered. But on one condition. Name it. I get to be on top sometimes. Aaron threw his head back and laughed, the sound echoing off the stone walls. Don't push your luck, sweetheart. We'll negotiate. 3 years later, I stood on the balcony of the Phoenix Palace, looking out over the bustling capital of West Lyon. It was thriving. The trade routes I had established were pouring gold into the city. The people were fed, the army was strong, and the Wing King was a name spoken with reverence. I wasn't the useless Omega Prince anymore. I was a tycoon, a power player, and I was happy. Strong arms wrapped around my waist from behind. I leaned back into the solid warmth of Aaron's chest, inhaling his scent of cedar and rain. You're thinking too loud, he murmured into my ear, his stubble grazing my neck. Just admiring my work, I said, covering his hands with mine. We did good, Aaron. You did good, he corrected. I just provided the capital. He turned me around, kissing me softly. It was a gentle kiss, full of a deep, abiding love that had grown from the chaos of our beginning. I have to go back to South Chu for a few months, I said, pulling back slightly. The jade trade needs my personal attention. And I want to bring my mother back here. She's not doing well there. Aaron nodded immediately. Do it. Take the royal guard. Take whatever you need. Bring her home. You're not worried I won't come back. I teased. He smirked, that arrogant, beautiful smirk that I had fallen in love with. You'll come back. Why are you so sure? He reached into his robe and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. Because I'm writing you a letter to take with you. Read it when you miss me. I took the paper. What does it say? Read it later. A month later, I was sitting at a banquet in my brother's palace in South Chu. The noise, the humidity, the fake politeness of the court. It all felt suffocating. I missed the cold wind of the west. I missed the sharp stone of the mountains. I missed him. I slipped out to the garden and pulled the folded paper from my sleeve. I opened it under the light of the moon. It was just one line, written in Aaron's bold, slashing handwriting. The flowers on the path have bloomed. You may slowly return. I smiled, tears pricking my eyes. It was a line from an old poem. It meant, I miss you, but enjoy the beauty of the journey. Just come back to me. My younger brother, the 7th prince, walked up behind me, holding a goblet of wine. Brother, you seem restless. Stay in the south for the winter. The west is too cold. I folded the letter and placed it against my heart. I looked at the moon, knowing Aaron was probably looking at it too, thousands of miles away. No, I said, my voice steady and sure. I leave tomorrow. So soon? My brother asked. Why? I turned to him, my smile bright and genuine. Because, I said, my home isn't here anymore. My home is where he is. I was the Wing King, and it was time to fly back to my dragon.